Welcome back on in, everybody, to the latest episode of the StricklyNFL podcast. Joining us today is going to be, obviously, Des, co-host per usual. But we're also going to have Shwin on the pod today. It is Bills-Ravens week, what many think might be the best game of this NFL season. So we're going to have the resident Bills fan on the pod this week to help break it down with us. Before we jump too much, we are going to get the ad read out of the way. BetOnline continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, the NBA, and college basketball, NHL to UFC, head over to BetOnline today and don't forget to use the promo code capital BLEAV, all caps, for a welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, the game starts here. And for those listening on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, whatever the case may be, I just want to remind everybody that we do have a Strickland Patreon where you can get access to the Discord, the full version of this podcast, and all that good stuff. $3 tier, $6 tier, $9 tier, which is where you'll find this one, along with other various podcasts such as Shwin's solo podcast that he has. Now, with that stuff out of the way, we're going to get into all the playoff stuff, probably just besides Chiefs-Texans, because that game is going to be played right before this drops. So we'll try to keep it to the latter three. And before we go into all that stuff, first of all, I'm going to toss the mic to Des and then pass over back to Shwin. How are you guys feeling? You. Yeah, point to yourself.
Feeling like it in general or about football? Huh?
Both. I want to see if the tone is being set.
In general, fucking tired, man. The fucking Giant season is it's worn me down. It's broken me as a man. You know, I can only watch games of Drew Lock and Daniel Jones for so long before you start to break down inside, and just lose the man that you once were and start to, what's this shit called? Metamorphosis, what the butterflies do. You start to cocoon into something new, and maybe it'll be better, maybe not. I don't know. Who knows? Shwin, how you doing, man?
I'm doing fine, great.
Yeah,
ready, nervous, all of the above.
Fine and great are not exactly the same thing.
Yeah,
not exactly. That's true.
Okay.
Also, I just want to point out, enough of the fucking bullshit. I'm tired of this woke bullshit of fucking NFL games on a Saturday, man. I got shit to do all day, and I can't even watch these games because fucking Roger Goodell decided, we're gonna put games on Saturday. I know sometimes they usually have wild card games on Saturdays, but like even in the regular season, we were getting games on fucking weird ass days. It's like, man.
That's always been there. That's always happened.
What happened to our shut up?
But
what happened to our country?
It's been so much more common like the last 2 seasons.
That's what I'm saying. Like it's more often.
That's just because they added an extra week. That's it. It's the only difference. They always do it as soon as the college football regular season ends. Then they can start playing games on Saturday.
It goes back to the
and also we had a weird
our country.
No, we had a weird year because the Christmas games were all like Wednesday. So they had like the Christmas games. It was a weird. The schedule ended up being weird because
the Christmas games
that start with a W
that absolutely nobody watched.
Yeah, only fans of those teams watched those.
Yeah,
games.
And George Pickens showed up a half hour before the game.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That dude is so fucking hilarious, man.
The best like parting quote that I heard was after the Ravens beat the snot out of them, they asked him if he's optimistic for the offense going forward and like, if it's trending up. And he said yes. And then they were like, oh, so like you feel positively about like where you guys are headed. And then he follows it up and says no.
No.
It's like, what the fuck is going on in your head?
What do you mean by that?
What are you talking about, dude? Anyway, we have gone way too far into depth on the bullshit that we've sat through and watched with the Giants this year. Eventually, when you start watching good football, it kind of feels torturous because you're like, all right, I have to watch these fucking idiots run around a field for 60 minutes every week.
Yeah, there's been a lot of discourse about like jumping fandoms and sports and shit on Twitter recently. And it's like, man, if I was like 10% worse of a person I totally would have jumped ship by now.
Don't give yourself too
I
much
can't
credit.
do it.
Don't give
I
yourself
can't
too
do
much
it,
credit.
man.
From the outsider's perspective, we haven't heard much of that this year because Giants fans have just been like, if you are not a fan of our team, you don't know what the fuck we're going through. You can't relate to this shit, whatever. But I think it's time we opened up a little bit. Shwin, of course, does not have a good quarterback on his team. Josh Allen is not good.
Correct.
Yeah, he fucking sucks.
At least not better than Lamar Jackson. So we wanted to bring him in, talk a little bit about the Giants. Where do you think we should go, Shwin, with the third pick? And what do you think about our decision to bring back Dable and Shane?
I would have fired Dable and Shane. I understand you don't necessarily want to do it. I think the reasons for not wanting to do it are pretty obvious, but this season was just so bad, and it was so bad in ways that are not just like. It wasn't just that the Giants were bad on the field in like they lacked talent. They looked disorganized. Like they had weird shit going on with what was it? The first game where like all preseason they had played Isaiah Simmons, then he just didn't play the first game of the season. Yep. They did shit like who was it? Flott. That was like he never played in the slot, and then they had him start in the slot in the first game of the year. Like that's like right off the bat. You're just like, how does any of that make sense? I thought the stuff with like starting DeVito because you're worried Drew Lock might hit incentives was insane. Like that was wild. And like Drew Lock himself is obviously not particularly great, but it's just bizarre to be like, you're our QB2 until we actually decide to make a QB change. And now you're still QB2 because DeVito's starting. Like, I don't get that. I thought some of the stuff that came out after the season of like, what was it? Joe Shane, basically like telling Nick McLeod his agent to like not pay rent in October because he's going to be out the fucking team. Like,
it's a bar. I'm sorry. Fuck Joe Shane for that, but that's a bar.
It is, but it's fucking weird. Like, it just feels like they're behind the scenes. These guys are, I don't know, like being intense is one thing. Like everybody in football to some degree is going to be intense, but like we already got shit last year. And I know from Buffalo, like Dable clashes heads with people. Like he's very unafraid to let you know what he thinks, how he thinks. And that stuff might play better as a coordinator, but as a head coach, you got to manage people and you also need to delegate. And I don't know, like he just has not, his first year, he's like, he took play calling from Kafka his first year, right?
I think it was, wrong. I think it was like the latter end of the first year.
Yeah. And then I think the second year he started off giving Kafka the play calling, but then immediately took it back.
Okay.
No, I think Kafka was our play caller all the first year.
Yes.
And then I think it started in Arizona when we were down big in the first half. And then reportedly, Dable was like, all right, man, get the fuck out of here. I'm calling the plays. And then we made that comeback that Daniel Jones fans have held on to for like 2 years now.
Yeah.
And then now like he's maybe not play calling again next year. Like you shouldn't be this uneven in your operation this far into your regime. And then like for Shane, it's just, your return on investment on the stuff he spent on has not been great on top of like the stuff that he chose not to spend money on looking really fucking good in other places like Saquon, obviously, and McKinney. So, like this draft this past year looks pretty good. So that's nice. But like the first two drafts, what do you really have from that? Like Wan'Dale Robinson, maybe
Micah McFadden.
Yeah, Micah McFadden.
So, like replacement level players, damn near.
Yeah. So it's just I don't know. It's the argument just being like, we need continuity. We can't keep changing it. Like, I don't know. I don't buy that. Continuity for the sake of continuity isn't good. There has not been nearly enough signs of progress or that they're about to turn the corner or that they know even necessarily what they're doing because like you then asked me, what should they do with the third pick? I don't know what they should do with their pick. If Cam Ward is on the board, I would 100% take Cam Ward. That's what I would do. But I'm not a Shedeur Sanders guy. Like I don't fully think that he's like all the way there with what you want from a franchise QB, which is what you're trying to draft at that position. You're not trying to draft like it's nice that Jared Goff has developed really nicely in Detroit, but for a first overall pick, and this is definitely overly harsh on Jared Goff, but you're generally hoping for more than Jared Goff with like that pick. Now, it's fine. Like Jared Goff is not a bust. He's not like some guy that obviously you can't win with or anything like that. I'm not saying that, but you're hoping to draft like a Mahomes, a Burrow, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson, that level of quarterback that high in the draft. And as much as like I think there are things that Shedeur does really well, I don't see him having the physical tools or necessarily the arm talent to really ever be in that tier of quarterback. I think he can definitely be like a Jared Goff level of quarterback, which is good. That's good. But I probably wouldn't take if you told me that was his best case scenario, which I kind of think it is. I'm not comfortable drafting that with the third overall pick. And I know that like there's, this is why it's hard, but like, you passed on JJ McCarthy, who I did like last year. I thought they should have pulled the trigger on that, but they didn't. They got Malik Neighbors, who's great. But like, you can't keep punting on quarterback, right? Like, you got to take a risk at some point. So if it's Shedeur, fine. If it's somebody, fine. But like, it's why it's hard, because it's easy for me to say I don't like Shedeur at 3, but okay, then we're not taking Shedeur if he's there even, right? Okay, you're not taking Shedeur. So let's say you take Travis Hunter and whatever. So you're punting on quarterback again? Like what? Like you have to eventually put your chips on the table for somebody, and they have not done it, right? They stuck with Daniel Jones for like 3 years, and now they have nothing at the position, right? You have Drew Lock and DeVito who are nothing, and it's easier to be like, well, I don't like these quarterbacks, so I'll take Travis Hunter or whatever, whoever it is. But if you don't have a quarterback, then or if you don't even have a potential answer at quarterback, then you're still kind of building towards nothing. Now, like there's things you could do, like maybe you sign Sam Darnold for all I know. Maybe you take a shot on like maybe Geno Smith is not long for Seattle. Maybe you take a shot on him, bring him back. Like there's things you can do, but none of them really feel like long-term solutions. So at the end of the day, like you're still going to be looking for that. And like I know the upside is looking, you'll be like, well, what about a team like Tampa? They got Baker and they're like in a much better place now. Sure. But like I'm sure they still have doubts about like how much, like, can we really compete with Baker Mayfield at quarterback? Can we really do that?
Yeah.
And that's like where the Giants are. If they don't draft a quarterback, then whatever you do with that position is likely not the guy that's ever going to lead you to actual contention. So that's still a major need in the long term. But then if you do draft a guy, like let's say again, Shedeur, I wouldn't feel confident about his ability to get you to that level either. Like, I know there are people that probably like Shedeur more than Cam Ward. Personally, I think Cam Ward has just his physical tools and physical talent are, to me, just different. Like he can play out of structure and off platform in ways I don't think Shedeur can. Shedeur is really polished, which is a good thing, but it also makes me wonder like how much of true upside he has. Whereas with Cam Ward, I think, he lacks polish and he definitely still needs to work on decision making and his feel in the pocket and stuff, but he can do things in the pocket and out of the pocket that I just have not seen from Shedeur. So that's why he would be like, again, if he's there, I would not hesitate. I'm taking him and I'm moving forward, but I don't know if I don't think he's going to be there. I think he ends up being the first quarterback taken.
If the Dolphins could
maybe Drew Aller comes out. I mean, he's great.
Guys, I think we're missing the real number 1 quarterback from this draft. Jalen Milroe.
Oh, Jalen Milroe. Okay. I thought you were going to say Jackson Dart.
Nah,
I like Milroe. I'd be interested in him in the second round if you do decide not to take quarterback in the first round, because I think that Alabama team this year was. I mean, look, you lose Nick Saban. You lose Nick Saban. It's going to be a big change. Their skill position talent outside of Ryan Williams was not impressive this season for Alabama. For Alabama, pretty unimpressive set of weapons. So it was a little weird, but he definitely didn't have a good close to the season. That's for sure.
Yeah. I wanted to pose a question just because I think when people comp Shador to a pro player, people always say Joe Burrow, right? Like, because
They
he's
don't understand. That's a 99th percentile outcome. Like Joe
out.
Burrow is the best version of that quarter, and even he has like it's taken him what 5 fucking years, but now he's actually able to make plays out of structure.
And it's also like his success has been Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, conjoined at the hip with him. So when you're talking about that, it's Joe Burrow is, I believe, 2 inches taller than Shadur Sanders. He's about 10 pounds, 15 pounds heavier, I believe, than Shadur Sanders. And he's a better athlete. Like, even coming out of college, forget when he hit the NFL and he had, NFL level strength and conditioning training. He was a better athlete in college than Shadur is. So when people throw out that Burrow comp, I think it's just them wanting to fill that kind of square peg with a round whatever the fuck it is, circle hole square peg.
We got it.
You know what the fuck I'm talking about. Um, and I think the real comp for him is like just the right-handed version of Tua. I think that's way more realistic. Like they both aren't great movers. They both like kind of like skinny fat. Like when I watch them, that's kind of what they look like. And they're not great laterally. Like they can escape the pocket, they can beat an edge rusher, and kind of turn that corner. But when they turn that corner, they're not going to turn it upfield for a 15-yard gain where they make somebody miss. And Burrow's done that before. He's run QB draw effectively in the NFL. I don't think Shador is that level of athlete. Tua is not that level of athlete, but I think they both thrive in the same places. Ball placement, accuracy. Even like I think Shador is a little bit of a better reader of a defense than Tua is because Tua in the NFL is all about anticipation and pre-snap reading. I think Shador is pretty good at reading at post-snap, but the more realistic comp is like Tua's probably Shador's like 65th percentile outcome, something along those lines. And if you were to go and ask Miami Dolphins fans right now if they would, redo that Tua pick and keep it the same, I don't think they'd keep it the same. I think they'd say, fuck it, let's draft whatever blue chip is there, and we'll try to trade up for another great quarterback or whatever.
I mean, if they did it over again, I'm sure, and like he's got his own issues, but like
Herbert.
they just take Herbert, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what they would do.
Yeah, I think they would too, but that I was just like throwing out the QB part of it and just trying to say like, okay, would you have taken a blue chip guy there? Like if you could take Travis Hunter or Tua Tagovailoa, I know it's different draft classes and whatever the case may be, but I'd still take the flyer on Travis Hunter over knowing what Tua has been. And if I'm going to equate Shador to Tua and kind of put that over, if I'm going to give Shador Tua's career and decide between that or Travis Hunter, I'm taking Travis Hunter every single time.
Yeah, and I think like it's frustrating because the entire conversation, like, because he'll help. Obviously, Travis Hunter, I think, is going to be fantastic. It almost feels like people are trying to downplay him now for some reason, and I don't fully understand it. It's like, well, he's not
fucking
he's
girl.
not. Yeah, well, it's just weird. It's like, oh, he's not. Are we sure that like you want to, he's going to split carries or split snaps on both sides, and like, is he a true number one corner? Is he? There's all these like weird questions. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I watch that guy and I just see a guy who was pretty dominant on both sides of the ball. Like literally dominant on both sides of the ball. So whatever he wants to do, and I get it, like maybe you want him to be a number one corner and he prefers to be a number one receiver because obviously the money is better there. That's like, I get those concerns, but at some point you just got to go with like the guy who's a stud. And yeah, I mean, I think if Ward is not there, I'm just taking him. I'm taking Travis Hunter because I think he's special, man. I think like I don't like. It's easy to look at him and just be like, wow, what a freak! Like it's crazy how he can play on both sides of the ball. I don't think people. I think it's easy to just see that, but to be as good as he is on both sides of the ball, that is a player who's not just a freak. That's somebody who has like supreme mental understanding and intelligence of the game. And that is why I'm fairly confident about this guy being like as much of a sure thing as you can possibly have in scouting, and as a prospect. Like he to me feels very much like a sure thing.